Right, on to actually editing within the edit panel itself. In this lecture, we're going to take a look at an editing technique called 3-point editing. And it's the simplest way to start building a timeline within Resolve. I have made my demo timeline and it's open from the previous lecture. And now I've got all of my marked up shots over here, and we're going to start taking a look at how this all works, as well as some important keyboard shortcuts. So the first thing I need to do is to open a rush up in the source viewer. So I'm going to double click on this shot here of the compression sock being put on. Now in the source viewer, I can click and drag this little white icon across this bar down here, or I can hit spacebar in order to play. Now I can just click and drag this entire rush down from the media pool onto the timeline, but that's not a very good edit because obviously who wants the entire rush down there? We only want to use part of it, what we call a cut of this rush. So let's look at how we can choose only a particular part of this rush to work with. Now we are going to cover a lot of keyboard shortcuts in this one. I'm going to provide a PDF of all of those shortcuts afterwards as well, so you will have something to refer to. So the first set of shortcuts that we are going to cover are called the shuttle shortcuts, and they let us play through our footage very easily. The letter L is the shortcut for shuttle forwards. That basically just plays forwards. But if I hit L multiple times, it will begin to play through more quickly. So I can choose to play through. Okay, there we go. I take a step backwards, then go through. The next keyboard shortcut is K, which is stop. So I can hit L to start shuttling forwards, then hit K when I reach the point that I want to use as the start of my edit. And the final keyboard shortcut for the shuttle, at least, is J. And J is shuttle backwards. It's the exact same function as shuttle forwards, just in the opposite direction. I can hit it several times to play backwards at varying speeds. So using these three keys, I can easily navigate to the part of the rush that I want to use in my edit. So let's say I want to find where he begins to pull the compression sock upwards. There we go. Now, awkwardly hopping around the one frame I want to use is a little bit annoying. So there's another way we can use these shortcuts. If I hold K down and tap L, then that allows me to shuttle forwards by one frame. Likewise, if I hold K down and tap J, I can shuttle backwards by a single frame. So what normally happens is we shuttle through. Okay, fine, that's getting close. Then shuttle through to the point where I want. There we go, he's got hold of it. And that is where the action starts. So these three shortcuts, J, K, and L, are extremely important. Once I have found the part of this rush I want to use as the beginning of my edit, I need to hit the letter I, and that's I for in. This establishes what is called an in point, and it is an essential part of the 3-point editing process. So what I want you to do is open up this rush, use the J, K, and L shortcuts, and don't forget holding K down and tapping will let you shuttle through. If you hold K and L down at the same time, it will play forwards in slow motion. Likewise, J will play backwards in slow motion. So find the point where Wayne just grabs hold of the compression sock and then hit the letter I to establish your in point, and then continue with this video. Right, so we have now established the in point, the next thing we want to do is establish an out point. Just like the in point is the beginning of our edit, the out point is the end of our edit, and it is the second point that is relevant to a 3-point edit. So I'm going to shuttle through until I find what I consider to be a good place to end this edit. And I'll just let it settle. I'll give it what we call some breathing room, and there is where I want to end this edit. So I will hit the letter O for out, and that establishes my out point, the end of the edit that I am going to place down on the timeline. Now, if we want to change our in or out points, all we have to do is reposition the little white playhead down here and then hit I or O again, and the in point or the out point will move to the new location. You cannot have several different ins and outs available on the same clip. Okay, so if I want to revise this and say I want to give it a little bit more breathing room, I shuttle forwards and hit O, and it just goes there. If I want to get rid of my in and out on a clip, I hold Alt and hit X. That is the keyboard shortcut for clearing I/O from, well, anything with an in out, and we refer to the in out of a clip as I/O. So if somebody says, you know, get rid of the I/O, they mean Alt and X, get rid of both your in point and your out point. Okay? If you want to get rid of just your in point, the shortcut for that is Alt and I. And if you want to get rid of your out point, the shortcut for that is Alt and O. So using all of these shortcuts, we can now go forward and select which part of this rush we want to place down on the timeline. So go ahead and place your out point and then continue with this video. Cool. So we now have our basic I/O on this clip. We have our in point and our out point, and between the two is all of the footage that's going to come down to our timeline when we place the edit down on the timeline. So how do we get an edit down onto the timeline to begin with? What we want to do is we can click and drag, we can left click in this image in the source viewer, and we can drag down onto our timeline, and then we can just drop it in wherever we want it to go. This is the most basic form of 3-point editing. You will now notice that we no longer have the whole rush, just like last time. If I push this down, it only uses what is within the I/O range that we have previously described. So now I can control which part of the rush I want to bring down onto the timeline. Clicking and dragging and what we call mouse work, working with the mouse, perhaps unsurprisingly, is the slowest, least efficient way to edit. Professional editors use the keyboard shortcuts as much as they are able. So let's take a look at the keyboard shortcuts to make a 3-point edit work. We've gone through J, K, L, I and O, as well as Alt, X, I and O, and again all of these will be written down in a PDF document that you can download from this module. The next two keyboard shortcuts we're going to look at are F9 and F10. If I press F9, then I make what is called an insert edit. Now, in an empty timeline, the difference between insert and overwrite edits is not obvious, because they interact with everything else in the timeline differently. I am going to place this clip over here, and if I want to move a clip around, I can just click on it and drag it to move it around. I can click on the edges of the clip, and that allows me to extend one side, or even trim it back in should I want to. So if I'm not happy with the duration of the clip, I can click and I can drag to change this around. Now, there's a much better way of doing this that we cover during the second pass of the edit with what we call the trim editing mode. So I would not recommend that you start clicking and dragging on edges just yet. I would follow along with this course and begin to use the trim edit mode after we have done first assembly together. So I can move a clip around simply by clicking and dragging. And by default, the audio and video are linked together. And that is because this white chain up here is highlighted. If I click this white chain and it will go grey, I can then move the audio and video around separately, which sometimes I may want to do that, but I also want to be able to move these two things together, so I will make sure that the chain is highlighted. If you're having problems with things being kind of detached, make sure you have the chain highlighted. So let's take a look at the difference between an insert and an overwrite edit. The keyboard shortcut for insert is F8. So if I hit that, look what happens. I keep on making this edit. Everything to the right of the playhead is being moved along by the same duration as the duration of the edit. That is to say that if I make a 5-second long edit with the insert command, everything to the right-hand side of my playhead will be moved forwards by 5 seconds. This stops things from going out of time if we want to adjust our edit, or if we want to insert a new clip or a new reaction or similar into a sequence that we have already started editing. If I hit F10, look what happens. F10 is an overwrite edit. It does not move things along. It simply steamrolls and sits on top of what was already there and overwrites it completely, hence the name. So if I want to move something, or if I want to replace something, or if I want to just put something down on top of something else, then F10, which is the overwrite edit, is the way to go. So remember the key difference between insert, move things along, overwrite, steamroll right over the top and overwrite it. So this has been a pretty good introduction to the 3-point edit. There is one last keyboard shortcut I want to share with you because it is brilliant. It is something that I haven't encountered in other editing solutions. So I'm going to place some edits down here, and then I'm going to go to a different clip, and I'm going to make a different IO. So what I want to do is I want to use a shortcut to place this edit down at the end of my current edit without having to fart around and move my playhead around. I can move my playhead by clicking and dragging. I can use the left and right keys. I got those two backwards, so left and right keys, to nudge my playhead around by 1 frame at a time, and I can use the down key to jump to what is called the next edit point, and an edit point is this join here between two clips. Now I can do that and then I can insert or overwrite, but that's a bit of a faff. I want to be able to do this quickly and efficiently. There is a keyboard shortcut called append to end of track, and what that does is it takes our edit and places it right on the end of our current edit in the active track, and we will talk more about tracks in a later lecture. The keyboard shortcut for this is Shift F12. That will place our edit down at the end of our timeline and then move our playhead to the very end of that edit. You might notice a kind of a zigzag shark tooth looking line up here in the program viewer. That tells me that there is nothing after this cut and that we are facing some black space. In fact, it's telling me that this is the very end of the edit. So, this has been a good overview of the basic 3-point editing techniques, and what I want you to do is to take the cheat sheet that I've given you. I want you to take the PDF, and don't currently worry about cutting anything together in a way that makes any narrative sense just now. Just get a feel for these shortcuts. So J backwards, K stop, L forwards, I, O, and then F8, F9, F9, F10, then also Shift F12. If you place an IO on your timeline, all you have to do is hold Alt and hit X. What you have to do is click back up in the program viewer, the source viewer even, up here, and make sure that the title above the source viewer is orange. Again, orange is active or selected in DaVinci Resolve, and all of your keyboard shortcuts will affect the active window. So if we start using J, K, and L when we have the program viewer active, it will move around in the timeline. Whenever we make an edit from the source viewer, it always then makes the program viewer active. We can easily switch back and forth between the source and program viewers by hitting the Q key, and that will toggle back and forth. See, as I touch this key here, the two names up at the top of the two viewers, strobe, orange, and white, because I'm toggling between which one is active. We then go ahead, double click on a new rush, make a new IO, and then Shift F12, place that edit down at the end of our sequence. So I want you to have a good play around with these keyboard shortcuts before moving on to the next lecture, where we are going to go through markers and how useful they can be. So have some good practice time, and then click on through to the next lecture once